A warning to our viewers. What you're about to watch is a true story. The following program contains content that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. 7 gunshots shattered the morning silence in courtroom 157. The first shot sent people diving under wooden benches. The second caused screams to echo off ancient walls. By the third, witnesses realized this wasn't an accident. By the 7th, a man lay dead on the floor of a West German courthouse, and a woman stood over his body, smoking pistols still in her hand. "I wanted to kill him," she told the judge, her voice eerily calm as chaos erupted around her. "I wanted to shoot him in the face, but I shot him in the back. I hope he's dead." March 6, 1981, Lübeck, Germany. A mother had just executed her daughter's killer in front of dozens of witnesses, television cameras, and the very judges meant to deliver justice. But this wasn't a moment of madness. This was the culmination of a system that had failed so catastrophically, so completely, that Marianne Bachmeier decided she had no choice but to become judge, jury, and executioner herself. What drove a 30-year-old single mother to smuggle a loaded weapon into a packed courtroom? What pushed her over the edge? And why, even today, do millions of people around the world say they would have done exactly the same thing? This is the disturbing truth behind 7 shots that shattered a nation, and the mother who proved that sometimes the only justice is the kind you deliver yourself. Welcome to the Shadow Files crime series. Tonight's case will shake you to your core. Take a moment to hit subscribe, drop a like, and please let us know where you're watching from. And now, we begin. To understand this case, we must step back into West Germany of the early 1980s, a nation still healing from the deep scars of World War II, where traditional values clashed violently with emerging social changes. This was a time before cell phones, before the internet, when justice moved slowly through courts that still bore the weight of history and shame. In the ancient Hanseatic city of Lübeck, with its towering medieval churches and narrow cobblestone streets, life moved at a deliberate, almost suffocating pace. This was a society where family reputation was everything, where community gossip traveled like wildfire through smoky local pubs and corner shops, and where a single mother working late into the night at a bar while raising her young daughter alone was viewed with deep suspicion and moral judgment. But most shocking of all, this was a time when convicted sex offenders could voluntarily undergo castration in prison, then quietly receive hormone treatments to reverse it, and walk free among families with young children. The West German legal system, desperately struggling with concepts of rehabilitation versus punishment, progressive ideals versus public safety, would soon face its ultimate test through the actions of one devastated mother. For 30-year-old Marianne Bachmeier, struggling to raise her beloved daughter Anna alone in this unforgiving world, the spring of 1980 seemed to hold genuine promise. She had absolutely no way of knowing that within just 1 year, her name would become forever synonymous with one of the most shocking and controversial acts of vigilante justice in modern European history. The story begins on June 3, 1950, when Marianne Bachmeier entered a world still reeling from unimaginable trauma. She was born to parents who had fled East Prussia during one of history's most devastating refugee crises, when over 12 million Germans were displaced from Eastern Europe. Her parents had survived the horrific evacuation of East Prussia in 1945, where hundreds of thousands died during the desperate winter flight from the advancing Red Army. Marianne grew up in Sørstedt, a small town near Hildesheim in Lower Saxony, where her traumatized parents tried to rebuild their shattered lives. Her father carried the double burden of being both a war refugee and a former member of the Waffen-SS. The household was conservative and devoutly religious, but beneath the surface, it was deeply broken. Her father had become the stereotypical authoritarian figure, a heavy drinker who spent most of his time at a local bar, his trauma manifesting as aggression that worsened with alcohol. When Marianne's parents divorced, her mother remarried a man Marianne described as equally dictatorial. The teenager, already struggling with the emotional chaos of her family, was perceived as troubled and defiant. Eventually, her mother made a heartbreaking decision. She kicked her own daughter out of the house. At just 16 years old, Marianne found herself pregnant and completely alone. She placed this first child for adoption, unable to care for an infant while struggling to survive on her own. 2 years later, tragedy struck again when she was raped and became pregnant a second time. This second child was also placed for adoption, each loss deepening the wounds of abandonment that had defined her young life. By age 20, Marianne had learned life's cruelest lesson. She could depend on no one but herself. Everything changed on November 14, 1972, when Marianne, now 22, gave birth to her third child. This time she made a different choice. Anna Bachmeier would not be given away. Despite her circumstances, despite having no partner or family support, Marianne decided to raise this daughter alone. Marianne had begun dating the manager of Tipas, a local pub where she worked. When that relationship ended, she found herself once again facing single motherhood, but this time she was determined. Because she worked behind the bar, Anna became a fixture at the pub. Marianne would take her young daughter to work, and she was known to never feel the need to rush home after her regular hours. This unconventional lifestyle created a complex dynamic between mother and daughter. In documentaries made years later, Marianne was portrayed as a single mother who worked well into the night and then slept into the day, leaving 7-year-old Anna on her own during daytime hours. Friends later said that Marianne treated Anna like a little adult, expecting her daughter to take care of many things on her own from a very young age. Anna frequently slept in the bar as her mother partied with customers. According to friends, Anna was described as a vibrant youngster who never truly had a pleasant family life. The little girl craved normalcy, the simple routine of a mother who was home during the day, who tucked her into her own bed at night, who attended school events and helped with homework. Marianne was painfully aware of how problematic their lifestyle had become. She even considered putting Anna up for adoption, recognizing that her daughter deserved better. But she couldn't bring herself to let go of the one person who had given her life meaning, the child who had made her feel needed and loved. The morning of May 5, 1980 began like so many others, with tension between mother and daughter. 7-year-old Anna, frustrated by her unconventional life, had an argument with Marianne. In a moment of childhood defiance that would haunt her mother forever, Anna decided to skip school that day. Neither of them knew that this ordinary morning argument would be their last conversation. By evening, Anna would be gone forever, and Marianne would be transformed from a flawed but loving mother into something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose. To understand the true horror of what happened to Anna Bachmeier, we need to meet the man who destroyed her life, and in doing so, forever changed her mother's. Klaus Grabowski was a 35-year-old butcher living in Lübeck, seemingly an ordinary member of the community. He lived with his fiancée, worked at his trade, and to most neighbors appeared completely normal. But Klaus Grabowski was hiding a dark secret. He was a twice-convicted child sex offender who had previously been sentenced for the sexual abuse of 2 young girls. In 1973, he had received probation for strangling a 6-year-old girl. Just a couple of years later, he sexually molested 2 9-year-old children. The West German legal system had tried an experimental approach to prevent his reoffending. In 1976, while in a psychological treatment facility, Klaus voluntarily submitted to chemical castration, estrogen injections designed to lower his testosterone and eliminate his sexual urges. The authorities believed this would make him safe to release back into society, but here's where the system failed catastrophically. In 1978, Klaus went to a urologist and asked to have his chemical castration reversed. He was engaged now, he explained, and he and his fiancée wanted to start a family. The court system actually approved this procedure. Klaus subsequently underwent hormone treatment to try to reverse the castration, secretly restoring his libido while living freely among families with young children. He was supposed to undergo mental health treatments as well, but spoiler alert, he wasn't. A known predator with a history of killing children was walking the streets of Lübeck, his sexual urges restored with no supervision whatsoever, and 7-year-old Anna Bachmeier knew him as the friendly neighbor with cats. The morning of May 5, 1980, began like so many others in the Bachmeier household, with conflict. 7-year-old Anna had an argument with her mother and, in a moment of childhood defiance, decided to skip school. Instead of going to class, she made a fateful decision to visit someone she considered safe, the neighbor with the cats. To her, he was just a friendly adult who let her pet his animals. She had no way of knowing that she was walking into the home of a predator who had already killed one child her age. Klaus lured Anna into his apartment with the promise that she could play with his cats. Once inside, he held her captive for several hours. What happened during those hours remains partially unknown, but the evidence suggests Anna experienced unimaginable terror. Klaus sexually assaulted the 7-year-old child during this time. As the hours passed, Anna likely realized the danger she was in. According to Klaus himself, Anna threatened to tell her mother about the abuse. This was when his panic set in. Klaus later claimed that Anna had sought to extort money from him by threatening to tell her mother about the abuse. He said his fear of going back to prison prompted him to kill her. Klaus strangled Anna with a pair of his fiancée's tights. According to the prosecutor, he then tied the girl up and packed her into a cardboard box. The professional butcher used skills from his trade to dispose of a child's body as if she were nothing more than waste. Klaus left Anna's body in the box on the shore of a canal, attempting to hide his horrific crime. But his fiancée returned home from work that afternoon and somehow discovered what he had done. Grabowski's fiancée immediately contacted the police, turning him in. Klaus was arrested that same evening at his favorite pub in Lübeck. When confronted by investigators, he confessed to strangling Anna but denied sexually assaulting her. Instead, he offered a defense that would haunt Anna's mother forever. Klaus claimed that Anna had tried to seduce him. He alleged that the 7-year-old had threatened to tell her mother about being molested unless he paid her money, essentially claiming that a child was trying to blackmail him. He painted Anna as the aggressor, himself as the victim. This wasn't just murder. It was the ultimate act of cowardice. Klaus Grabowski had brutally ended the life of an innocent child, and now he was trying to destroy her memory as well. He had not only taken Anna's life, but was attempting to brand her as a manipulative seductress in death. For Marianne Bachmeier, learning of these accusations against her 7-year-old daughter would prove to be the final breaking point. Her child was gone forever, and the man who killed her was now claiming that Anna, a little girl who just wanted to play with cats, had somehow brought this horror upon herself. The stage was set for one of the most explosive acts of vigilante justice in modern history. The investigation into Anna's murder was swift and damning. When investigators discovered Anna's remains and arrested Grabowski for her abduction, rape, and murder, the evidence against him was overwhelming. Grabowski confessed to the murder after his fiancée tipped off police, but what emerged during the investigation would shock the community of Lübeck. As we go into the most chilling details of this documentary, take a brief moment to like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, for more in-depth investigations and analysis of significant cases like this. Klaus Grabowski was very well known in the community and among law enforcement. He had received a probation sentence in 1973 for strangling a 6-year-old girl. In a second attack just a couple of years later, he sexually molested 2 9-year-old children. The public was outraged. How had a man with this horrific record been walking freely among their children? The defense blamed Lübeck authorities for allowing Grabowski, who underwent voluntary castration in 1976 after convictions for sexual offenses, to take hormone treatments that returned his sexual drive and led to his allegedly molesting and killing Anna. West German judiciary was criticized for enabling a man who had sexually abused 2 girls to use hormones to regain his libido. For Marianne Bachmeier, these revelations were devastating. Not only had her daughter been murdered, but it could have been prevented. The loss of her child in such a heinous manner left Marianne, a single mother, utterly devastated and pushed to the brink of despair. In an ARD documentary from 2006, a former friend said that Bachmeier rehearsed the shooting in the basement under Tipasa after Anna's murder. The case was scheduled for trial in March 1981 at the Lübeck District Court. The case shocked the community and garnered widespread media attention. For Marianne, the trial represented her only hope for justice. She had no idea that the legal proceedings would push her even further toward the breaking point. The trial against Grabowski began on March 3, 1981. The trial drew significant media coverage and public interest. Anna Bachmeier attended the trial, grappling with the emotions of facing her daughter's murderer. The trial received huge publicity in the popular press. The weekly magazine Stern ran a sympathetic serial on Marianne Bachmeier's life before the trial opened. But if Marianne expected justice, she was about to be horrified. Grabowski's trial was likely a heartache for Bachmeier. His defense attorneys claimed he had acted out of a hormonal imbalance that was caused by hormone therapy he received after being voluntarily castrated years earlier. The defense claimed Grabowski had murdered Anna Bachmeier due to an alleged hormonal imbalance caused by hormone therapy from when he was voluntarily surgically castrated years earlier. Even worse, Grabowski himself showed no remorse. Grabowski refused to speak or show remorse during most of the trial proceedings. Instead, he and his defense pursued what can only be described as a reprehensible strategy. Grabowski had testified that 7-year-old Anna had attempted to seduce him and that he had killed her because she had threatened to tell her mother of the attack unless he gave her money. What pushed her over the edge was Grabowski's continued claims that 7-year-old Anna had tried to sexually seduce him and then blackmail him for money. Bachmeier knew in her grieving mother's heart this was a monstrous lie told by an unrepentant child killer. Marianne Bachmeier took personal offense at Grabowski's allegations regarding her daughter. She sat in the gallery, watching as the man who had murdered her child not only showed no remorse, but actively destroyed Anna's memory with each word he spoke. As the trial progressed into its third day, March 6, 1981, Marianne reached her absolute breaking point. Bachmeier later stated, in reference to Grabowski's claims that her 7-year-old was attempting to blackmail him, "I heard he wanted to make a statement. I thought, now comes the next lie about this victim who was my child." The system that was supposed to deliver justice was instead delivering one final unbearable humiliation. As she watched Klaus Grabowski prepare to spread more lies about her dead daughter, Marianne Bachmeier made a decision that would change everything. She reached into her purse and pulled out a Beretta 70 pistol. Justice, it seemed, would have to be delivered by her own hand. At exactly 10 a.m. on March 6, 1981, Marianne Bachmeier entered courtroom 157 of the Lübeck District Court. She had secretly managed to carry a .22 caliber Beretta 70 pistol in her purse into the packed courtroom. For 3 days, she had listened to Klaus Grabowski's defense team blame hormone treatments for his actions, and to Grabowski himself claim that her 7-year-old daughter had tried to seduce and blackmail him. She saw Grabowski in the front of the courtroom. Bachmeier raised the Beretta 70 and opened fire on Grabowski. She fired 8 shots, striking him 7 times. Some reports say that he died almost instantly on the courtroom floor. According to an eyewitness account, she pulled out a pistol and emptied the entire magazine. Then she came back out of the courtroom, threw the pistol on the floor, and allowed herself to be immediately led away. Marianne was immediately taken into custody with no resistance or issue. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Judge Günther Kroger, who spoke to Bachmeier immediately after the shooting, quoted her as saying, "I wanted to kill him." Asked why, Marianne said, "Because he killed my daughter. I wanted to shoot him in the face, but I shot him in the back. I hope he's dead." Two policemen said they heard her refer to Grabowski as a pig immediately after the shooting. In her official statement, she wrote, "I did it for you, Anna." She included 7 hearts to depict the 7 years of Anna's life. In the pandemonium of the courtroom-turned-crime scene, eyewitnesses reported that Bachmeier spat hatefully at Grabowski's lifeless body on the ground, saying, "You got what you deserved, pig." The incident sparked extensive media coverage. Television crews from around the country and overseas traveled to Lübeck to report on the case. While Bachmeier was held in custody, many sent messages of support, gifts, and flowers to indicate their understanding of her conduct. One bunch of flowers had a card with a note saying, "To you, from a grandfather who would have done the same thing. You are not alone. Courage." Bachmeier was said to have received as many as 15,000 letters while in jail. Within a week after the act, they had donated 100,000 marks to the account of a support association for Marianne Bachmeier, with the intention of paying for her legal fees. The financial support was substantial. Bachmeier sold her life story for about 100,000 Deutschmarks to the news magazine Stern. With the fee, she covered her legal costs. The magazine received an overwhelming response from readers, but the nation was divided. Some still believed that a constitutional state should not condone vigilante justice. After Stern published her life story and details about how she allowed her first 2 children to be adopted by loving families, public opinion shifted as she no longer appeared to fit the innocent mother image. A 1983 survey by the Allensbach Institute highlighted the divided public opinion. 28% of Germans felt her sentence was appropriate, 27% thought it was too harsh, and 25% believed it was too lenient. According to the German newspaper Der Spiegel, Marianne Bachmeier struck a chord of open and repressed feelings of hatred and fear in the general consciousness and collective unconscious. The case had become more than just a crime story. It was a mirror reflecting Germany's own struggles with justice, trauma, and the question of whether some acts, though illegal, could still feel morally justified. On November 2, 1982, Bachmeier was initially charged in court with murder. Later, the prosecution dropped the murder charge. Marianne Bachmeier faced a minimum jail term of 5 years and a maximum of life imprisonment. After 28 days of court proceedings, she was convicted on March 2, 1983 by the Circuit Court Chamber of the District Court of Lübeck for manslaughter and unlawful possession of a firearm. The defense's argument that the act was not premeditated was mostly upheld by the court. The court decided that she acted spontaneously under exceptional circumstances. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but was released after serving 3. The leniency reflected a degree of societal empathy for a woman devastated by the brutal murder of her daughter. According to a survey by the Allensbach Institute, a majority of 28% of Germans deemed her 6-year sentencing as an appropriate penalty for her actions. Another 27% considered the sentence too heavy, while 25% viewed it as too light. In June 1985, Bachmeier was released on parole. Parole was continued for 2 years and 10 months following her release. The case had become one of the most significant legal precedents in German vigilante justice discussions, forcing the nation to grapple with questions of when, if ever, taking the law into one's own hands could be understood, if not justified. In the later part of 1985, Bachmeier married an unnamed German schoolteacher and moved to Lagos, Nigeria, in 1988 on a teaching sabbatical. Their marriage ended in divorce in 1990, and Marianne found herself once again starting over, seeking anonymity far from the media attention that had defined her life. After relocating to Sicily, Bachmeier was employed as an aide in a hospice in Palermo. Caring for the dying, she perhaps found some peace in helping others through their final moments. But her own health was deteriorating. She was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in Sicily and then returned to Germany. In a 1995 television interview, she admitted to deliberately shooting Klaus Grabowski, explaining that her goal had been to ensure justice for her daughter and prevent him from lying about Anna in court. Even facing death, Marianne never expressed remorse for killing Grabowski. She remained convinced that what she had done was necessary, that Anna's memory had been worth defending. On September 17, 1996, Bachmeier died at the age of 46 from pancreatic cancer in a hospital in Lübeck. She is buried next to her daughter Anna in Bergtor Cemetery, Lübeck. Their graves lie side by side, a mother and daughter reunited at last. Their shared headstone a testament to a love that transcended death and law. The case sparked extensive media coverage and public debate that continues to this day. Marianne Bachmeier's legacy endures in documentaries, law school discussions, and true crime forums worldwide. Her story remains one of the most compelling examples of how grief can drive ordinary people to extraordinary and irreversible actions. The question she posed to society remains as relevant today as it was in 1981, when the system fails to protect the innocent. What lengths are we justified in going to seek justice? Her answer cost Klaus Grabowski his life, cost her 3 years of freedom, and ultimately defined her place in history as Germany's revenge mother, a title that captures both the horror and the humanity of her impossible choice. Today, more than 4 decades later, the case of Marianne Bachmeier continues to challenge our understanding of justice, grief, and the thin line between right and wrong. Anna Bachmeier was just 7 years old when her life was brutally cut short by a man the system had failed to contain. Her mother's response, 7 shots in a crowded courtroom, shocked the world but also forced us to confront uncomfortable questions about what we do when the law fails to protect the innocent. The legal implications of Marianne Bachmeier's actions are still discussed in law schools and legal symposia. Marianne Bachmeier never expressed remorse for her actions. Whether you see her as a grieving mother driven to desperate action or a vigilante who undermined the rule of law, her story remains one of the most compelling examples of justice taken into one's own hands. 4 decades later, Marianne Bachmeier's name still resonates as a symbol of vengeance, grief, and the moral gray area between justice and vigilantism. The question that haunts us isn't whether what she did was right or wrong. It's whether any of us, faced with the same devastating loss and systemic failure, might have done the same thing. What do you think? Was Marianne Bachmeier a hero or a criminal? Let me know in the comments, and if this case moved you as much as it moved me, please subscribe for more stories that explore the complex intersection of crime, justice, and human emotion. Until next time, remember that behind every true crime story are real people whose lives were forever changed by unimaginable tragedy. If you enjoyed this content, join our community by subscribing and turning on notifications. Every subscriber makes it possible for us to keep creating content we're passionate about sharing with you.